All right, welcome to the Canvas Report. I'm Jared Fossen, and we've got Shannon Ryrie with us as well. And we are going to be talking all things modules today. We're going to look at some of the ways to guide students through the modules and some of the features that are there for you with requirements, as well as what that's going to look like on the student and teacher end. So Shannon's going to get us started.
Yeah, so we wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about a feature that isn't necessarily brand new, but that maybe you don't know about. You can set requirements in modules that can help the flow of how your students work through the content that you're sharing with them. So I want to show you that by looking at this example module that I've created. I just have a lot of example content in there. And if I wanted to add requirements, I would go to my module and click on my menu button and click on edit. And then I can click where it's hyperlinked blue, I can add requirements. When it comes up, it gives me the option to either set requirements that the students need to do all of them, or you could change it so that they only have to complete one of the requirements. For this, we are going to go through an example of requiring all of them. Then I'm also going to check this box, students must move through requirements in sequential order. When Jared shows his example, you'll see what that looks like for students. But that would be if you do want your students to move through in a particular order. So it gives me, in this dropdown, all of the content that's available to me in my module. I'm going to start with the very first overview page, and I'm going to say that my students just need to view the item. All that means is they need to go to the page, be on it for at least a couple seconds and move on. So not a lot of accountability there, but sometimes for a content page, that's all you need. I'm going to click add requirement, and I'm going to choose the next item down, which is a content page. In this time, I'm going to mark as done. Jared, again, will show you what this looks like, but this just adds a little bit more accountability to your students to confirm that they actually viewed the content that you had on that page. The next requirement that I'm going to add is for a discussion. Now, the only requirement that I can add for this is either to view the item or contribute to the page. Because my discussion that I created is ungraded, the only option that it'll give me is to contribute to the page there. If I set it as a graded assignment, then I would also have submit the assignment as one of my drop-down options. So just be aware that sometimes when you have different options showing up for what you can require them to do, it has to do with how you created the resource. All right, so I'm gonna go on and I'm going to add an assignment. And in an assignment, I can view it, mark as done, submit the assignment, which is what I'm going to do, or we also have this item for score at least, which we'll look at in just a second. So in this case, they just have to submit the assignment. For the final requirement for this module, there is a quiz, and I now have submit or score at least. I'm going to choose score at least, and you can see that it gives me a box. Now, this is just a sample quiz that I created, so there are 0 points possible here. So it does let you know how many points your item is worth. Let's pretend it's worth 10, and let's say that I want my students to get an 8 before they can move on. When I click update module, it now has an update of what my requirements are, which is helpful for me as a teacher. My students will also see this as well. So now that you have kind of an example module set up, I'm gonna give it over to Jared for him to show you what that will look like for you as a teacher and as a student.
Well, let's take a look at this from the student and teacher views. As a student, I can see all the requirements in the module, and they'll be grayed out if it's set up sequentially. So remember, as a teacher, you can always check the student view by clicking on the glasses on the page, like we'll do here. And you can see that some of this grayed out because I've got to go through this sequentially. So this first one I'm going to view, and I can just hop into this page by clicking on it. And Canvas will count me as viewing it when I'm on the page. So when I click next, or I'm going to click next when I'm done with it, and I'm ready to move on to the next item. And I'm going to continue to move forward until I have to submit. So you can see on that discussion, I can get through that on the page, I can get through it. And now here's this assignment and quiz. So I can't do the quiz, you can see here, until I do these other items in here. So it's letting me know that I have to complete these items before I'm actually going to be allowed into the quiz itself. So I've got to come back to the discussion, submit that, and then do the next piece. So when you set it up sequentially, you're really setting up the order that you want the students to go through it. So you need to think through that, because the student won't be able to complete the module unless they move through it the way that you set that up. So when we go back to the module view, you can see that there's a check mark here by the item that I viewed, but on the discussion, I haven't contributed yet. And so I have not yet completed it. And until I do, I can't really move on in the module. So setting it up sequentially really forces the student to move through the module the way that you want them to. So you want to make sure that you have that set up in the correct order so that you don't lock students out of certain items on there. So let's see what this looks like from the teacher view. So let's take a look at this from the teacher point of view, but we're going to use a different class that actually has students already in there working through the course. So when you go to your module, up at the top, there's this nifty little button that says View Progress. When you select it, it will pull up all the students in the course, and it will pull up all the modules, and you can click through each student and see where they're at, like if they're stuck, what they've completed, and what they're currently working on. And so you can see for this particular student, they've completed a few of these modules, and I can see the items that they need to complete on this particular module. And that will work as I look at each student that's in here. I can see where their progress is at and what, where they're stuck, what they're currently working on, and what they've got left to do. So that is a fantastic button for you. Again, that's just View Progress. It's at the top of the modules. So we've got some great features that are set up in the module itself with the requirements, and then the students can see what they need to work through, and the teachers can view progress as well. Shannon, let's head back to you.
So we are so glad you're here with us. We know this isn't a brand new feature, but definitely one worth noting. We are excited to share with you over the next couple of months some really exciting, really handy things that Canvas is rolling out, some features that you've asked for a long time. So we're excited to see you in the next couple months. And for now, thank you so much for joining us for the Canvas Report.